Okay. Sorry about that. It has a lot of glitches.
I understand.
Um, so we were having a conversation about the context, where to find the children, what is the moment that we should capture their attention. Maybe they're sitting in the back of the car and they're not eye to eye with us, and then initiating the conversation, the type of conversation we have. I have a question for you.
Sure.
So I wonder, I often think that the initial, at least the way that I see it in my clients, I often ask people, when was the first time that you were introduced into any form of sexual education, sexuality information, sensual information? So if we are not happy with the kids being exposed to entertaining material like porn, are we going to then expose them to certain material that we want? Let's say, for example, a more gentler or maybe a romantic. So, what is the advice there?
Yeah, I do think we are so lucky that these days there are wonderful materials for children and tweens and teens that teach about bodies and sexuality in age appropriate ways. And in the back of Yes Your Kid, I have a whole resource guide for parents
Hmm.
of my favorite picture books for little kids about bodies and consent taken out of the context of sexuality, about somewhat older books around puberty ages. I think, Wait, What is one that a lot of parents really like these days. It's a graphic novel, it's for kids who are
Hmm.
around that puberty age. And there's some also really nice ones for teenagers. So, I think as parents, we need to remember too, it's not as simple as giving your kid one book that will last them throughout their whole childhood and adolescence. You've got to keep updating them at different ages and stages. And also, when we share these materials with kids, making sure that they know we're not trying to avoid talking with them.
Yeah.
So that we see them as something they can use, they can have in their room, they can look at. There's also really nice online resources, videos that parents can watch with their kids or share with their kids to watch on their own. But really nice age appropriate videos for kids, online puberty series. I mean, all sorts of things that get those conversations going so that our kids can get their questions answered and can learn, and not just be subjected to really exposure from a lot of different materials that were created by adults for adults, not for kids and teens.
This is a great point. So you're referring to this list on the back of your book, and I have it. But I wonder, so for the, are you anywhere online that people can follow and learn more about your work and also the resources that you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, Instagram, for sure, just at Debbie Herbenek, and people can follow me there. And I do share a range of resources for kids. I think Sex Etc. is also a really nice site for
Yes.
teenagers
Hmm.
too.
Hmm.
There's just a real richness of resources these days for kids and teens.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, you have a whole chapter around neurodiverse kids, like a whole conversation. People on autism spectrum, children on autism spectrum. I wonder, first of all, if you don't mind my asking, like, what prompted you to put this into the book? And can you talk to us a little bit about the importance of it?
Yeah, before I got into sex education and sex research, I worked with little kids with autism and
Oh,
and younger kids, and as I got older and I would go to more workshops and trainings. This was many years ago now, more than 20 years ago. But so many of the trainings that touched on sexuality at all were really from a law enforcement perspective. They were really trying to get law enforcement folks to sort of identify, for example, if somebody was masturbating in public, that they might not be
mhm.
really, just trying to be inappropriate, but there might be something else there that they should understand. And that was a start. The community of parents and advocates was really working hard to get that information out, to people in the law enforcement community. But it wasn't a holistic perspective on sexuality and sexuality education. And as there have been so many more successes with getting kids into, sort of just general education classrooms, that's also meant that we really need to attend as a community, to all the kids in these schools. And so making sure that, all of the kids, including kids who are autistic, also are getting appropriate education, which they don't always in schools. They may not have it as part of their educational plan. They may get pulled out with enough other surfaces, whether like speech or PT or OT, that sometimes they might miss some of the health classes
Mhm.
or sexuality education classes, or some of them just might not be appropriate for them, in the sense that very often with general sexuality education programs, depending on the school district and the school, sometimes sex educators aren't even allowed to use very specific language like vagina or penis or intercourse. And so even some very, well trained sex educators or health educators really have to find themselves using more like vague language or euphemistic language. And that is not helpful for kids on the spectrum who really benefit from very clear, direct
Yeah.
language. So that is just one point of many that I talk about in the chapter on kids with autism, because there's a whole bunch of other issues that I see with our college students these days, which is really amazing to hear them talk about, for example, how they approach romance or sexuality in ways that
Mhm.
are still, still allow them to be romantic and affectionate and intimate with people while still being attentive to their sensory needs, for example, which might for some people, require them to have like much more like firm, touch as part of their sexual stimulation. And for other people, it means like staying away from things like wetness, or
Mhm.
from certain sounds that bother them. And whether people are, have a diagnosis of autism or not, many people can relate to sensory issues. And so both in other chapters and in that kid, and in that chapter of Yes Your Kid, I try to make some space for the range of issues, and the range of ways that we can better support all the kids in our community. And that's really important to me.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so you're talking about I recognize that my video went off again,
And that's okay.
but it's really interesting what you're talking about here, because also so we talked about as early as 7 and 8 children are exposed into so many different material that are entertaining, made by adults for adults. So we need to really get in as parents, and as all of these I see something actually that distracted me. I had a point here to talk about the assault and consent, and I'm also recognizing that our time together today is off, and I know that you have a class to teach right after. I don't want to disrespect your time, so I wonder if you don't mind. We'll continue the conversation some other time. And I'm going to put the information around your book and also all of your channels in our description of this live, and hopefully we'll get the conversation going. And I think actually your work here is very novel around the teens and tweens and um, children in between rather than younger or the older
Right.
population, which is very valuable for all of you out there. Yes, your kid by Dr. Debbie Herbenik. I think, I hope that you get out and buy your copy today. I will put the links everywhere to make it easier for people. And Dr. Debbie, thank you so, so much for being here with me. And last week, we went through the glitches. And this week, we went through more glitches. But hopefully, next time, we're going to do um, other mediums and platforms, so without this disruptions we can have our conversations.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Sarah. It was good to see you.
Thank you kindly. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Too.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.